Hey, good afternoon. This is Harry from Spurs TV, and I'm here to do a quick stream to talk about yesterday's game. Hey, I don't know who's watching, but like and subscribe to the channel. So yeah, let's talk about Preston yesterday. We actually won 3-0, surprisingly, because we haven't really been that good, I don't think, this season, and I think yesterday's result was very important. Nice to see Son on the score sheet, and Danjuma got his first goal. So yeah, that's pretty good. But let's talk about first of all Pedro Porro. So yeah, Spurs are actually signing a right wing back after 29 days. Well, it's probably gonna be 30 days by the time he signs tomorrow. But we finally got right wing back in Pedro Porro. From what I've heard, he actually is a Conte signing, so that's good to hear, I guess. So he played his last game yesterday for Sporting against Porto in the final, and as a Spurs player would do, he lost the final. So yeah, he'll fit right in with us, I guess. And yeah, so it's good to see Porro come in. Obviously, Doherty played last night in the right wing back slot, and he wasn't that impressive. I thought it'll be interesting to see whether Emerson or Doherty leave in this window because Spencer's rumoured to go out on loan, which would leave us with, I think, again, 5 wing backs if Porro was to come in, which he is, and Spencer going out on loan. So I do feel like someone like Emerson or Doherty will leave this window, whether it's a loan or a permanent move. Who knows? So yeah, I think we'll get straight to it. Let's talk about Son because this is coming from someone like me who's criticised Son all season, right? And we've heard time and time and time again that this is the time when Son's going to go back to form, okay? And yesterday he played in a central position, which I thought was quite interesting, all things considered. Maybe it was more to do with Kane's virus, and they didn't want to risk him, so Son played in the middle. But it's the first time I think this season, and maybe even under Conte, that Son actually played as a centre forward, right in the middle of the 3-4-3. And I don't know if you guys noticed, he was dropping back a lot like Kane does. He was picking up the ball, laying it off a bit quicker. I felt like he was more involved in the game. He took his goals quite well. Okay, albeit it was Preston. So, a lot of people say this was a turning point for Sonny. But I think with Son, we need to give it like another 4 or 5 games to see what happens. Because, like I said again, people earlier in the season, against Leicester, when he came on and scored his hat trick, were like, Son's back. And well, look what happened after that. So we just need to see in time. But I do think Son's position change yesterday was quite interesting to see because the last time, like I said, Son played in the centre forward position, probably under either Mourinho or Pochettino. I think Nuno may have used him there once or twice when Kane wasn't playing. But Son's most effective position at Tottenham for me was when Kane was dropping off and Son was playing as like the last defender in that sort of position. But I do think if you look at Son in the sense of his form this season, also as a player, he relies a lot more on his pace compared to like someone like Kane. Now, Kane obviously I think will transition to like a deeper lying midfielder, even maybe in his later years, or at least a number 10 at the very least. But with Son, with his pace sort of like decreasing, I'd say from what I've seen, and this is just my assessment, I think playing in the middle might actually like probably be better for him. And the reason I say this because Son as a finisher is brilliant. He's brilliant. But this season he struggled because he just can't take on players for some reason. He's not releasing the ball quick enough. But if you played in the middle, if you tell him just stay around the box like this, and obviously he did score like one of the goals yesterday, like just outside the box, but just stay around the box like this, and then obviously just poach the other goals inside the box, he could transition to like an actual striker in his later years. I mean, he's hitting 30, like I said now, and he's lost a bit of pace. So maybe an idea would be to persist more of the 3-5-2 with Son and Kane and play Son even actually more central than Kane and give Kane more the free role, which I think Conte's maybe played the 3-5-2 maybe once or twice this season, but something like that might benefit Son more. I think Conte is also pushing him to play more infield anyway, because if you look at where Perisic plays or Sessegnon, they try and hog the touchline more, and that's what Conte wants the wing backs to do. So by default, the player playing on the left-hand side is going to have to come inside. And I think that would benefit someone like Richarlison as well. But if he plays instead of Son. But I think the 3-5-2 with Son and Kane is probably more to persist with. Okay, let's talk about Bissouma. Let's talk about Bissouma. I thought Bissouma yesterday, he was a bit better, but whether that's to do with the opposition or whether it's to do with the fact of playing alongside Bentancur, who I think Bentancur makes every single midfielder he plays alongside him look twice as good as he is. And Basuma, I thought, was a lot more progressive with the ball. I felt like he had more an effect on the game. But like a caveat, like I said, it's Preston, and we're going to naturally get more of the ball because Preston sat back. They just gave us the ball and they said, Tottenham, come and hit us. I want to talk about Kulusevski because the past couple of games, to me, he doesn't look match fit. I think, like Richarlison, I think he's been rushed back because we're so desperate for creativity in the side that we had to get Kulu back as soon as possible. And I think that he's... hey, afternoon, mate, you're right. It's okay, don't worry, mate. And I think that he's sort of like... I don't know how to say it with Kulusevski. I think he's going to get back to where he was, but I think it'll take more time. And I just don't think... Yeah, like I said, he doesn't look match fit to me. I know I got the assist and for Danjuma, and I think I'll talk about Danjuma in a bit, but let me just look at the back. We've got to talk about Sessegnon now because for me, guys, I don't even know what to say about Sessegnon. I just surely this is Sessegnon's last year at Tottenham. It's just it's painful to watch. I don't know. Even with him, even with Sessegnon, I think it's a habit of Tottenham where we buy young players and we just buy them just because they're young, they're English, just for the sake that we might make a quick buck. But we spent 25 million on Sessegnon. And initially I thought he actually was a Pochettino sign-in, but he actually isn't. Yeah, Sess needs to find another club. If you want to hop on, the link's in the chat, by the way, mate. So if you want to hop on, just click on the link. And yeah, so I think I'm tired of hearing about Sessegnon. I think the guy just needs to go in the summer. When Sadoji comes back, I don't see Sessegnon getting any minutes. I think Perisic will probably stay in like another year, maybe. But we need to be looking at another left wing back in the summer, I think, regardless. And I know Reguilon's kind of like a better choice, but Danny Wolf from Leicester. You know what? You joke, yeah, but Willy Boley is probably going to get into our defence. He actually would. You joke, yeah, but he actually would get into our defence. All right, that's okay. Don't worry, mate. But like for me, Sessegnon is just beating a dead horse at this point. Just get rid of him. Seriously, just get rid of him. Like I said, I mentioned Doherty earlier, and you know the right wing back situation. But let's look at the centre half. So Tanganga played on the right. You had Sanchez in the middle and Longley on the left. Now, I think Longley did okay. He didn't really have much to do, but my take on him is that give him a permanent contract, sell Davies, and bring in like a Bastoni or something, or him Cape on top of that. Someone like Davies, just get rid of him. I think Longley, I know he's not that much better than Davies, but he's also got a few more years on him in terms of like he can last another 2-3 years longer. So get some money for Davies in the summer. Bring in Cape or whoever on the left-hand side because Spurs are looking at a left-sided centre half, regardless. And then I would keep Longley as like a backup because he can also sort of play in the middle. Yeah, I mean, you know what with Sessegnon, he kind of played a lot higher up at Fulham, and we brought him in and played him at left back. But also, I never really saw that much with him. I know he's had his injuries, but Adam Smith, you know, he's better than Sessegnon, to be fair. But yeah, so Sanchez was the captain yesterday, and I don't know if you guys follow me on Twitter, but I had like a meltdown about this, and I can't believe the guy has been here for what, like, how many years? 6-7 years, let's say, and he's the captain of Tottenham. I know against Preston, but like he made that mistake in the first half, which almost ended up in a goal. And then I'm like, how is Sanchez still at Spurs is beyond me. He's another one. He needs to go in the summer. I can't watch him another game. I'd argue for me, if you can get rid of players like Sanchez, and I'd rather see a youngster play in that position, to be honest with you. Okay, probably. I don't think it's his pace though. To be fair to Session, I don't think it's his pace. I think it's more it's like his end product. And he just can't take on players. He can't beat a man. I don't think he lacks pace in terms of like if you look at him as like a player. I don't think he lacks pace. I just think he just has no confidence, or I don't know what it is. He just can't take on players. Beats me why as that's the case, but I'm not the manager. I don't know what happens. Yeah, you know what? Also, Adam Smith is probably like 28 now. I might be wrong, but he's also the captain, isn't he, of Bournemouth? Yeah, because I had a Bournemouth fan on earlier in the season. I think he's their captain, and he's their best player, arguably. So I don't see them letting him go anyway. But yeah, so Sanchez needs to go. I really wasn't impressed with his performance. Okay, let's talk about Forster, because obviously Lloris wasn't even in the squad yesterday, which is quite interesting. Yeah, I was happy with Forster. I thought he did all right yesterday. He didn't have much to do, but for what he had to do, he did it well. And I would play against Man City, no questions asked, instead of Hugo, because I think Hugo is just made way too many mistakes. He's on the decline. Some people might argue Forster's more on the decline because he's older, but no, I just think Forster deserves more minutes especially after yesterday. Give Forster more minutes, please. Like honestly, I can't watch Lloris another game. Seagon, Pascal Seagon. Pascal Seagon. Oh my god, he's a throwback and a half, isn't it? God, I know. I think Sanchez. Do you think Sanchez is worse than Seagon or better? That's a good question. Because Pascal Seagon was proper slow, bro. Like he was slow. Yeah, let's talk about this guy because I think we have to talk about this. Danjuma. Let's talk about Danjuma. So Danjuma, yep. Pascal. Okay, if you guys are watching the video, please like the video. Let's get to at least like 10 likes or something. He can defend his trolley ass. That's brilliant. This guy's a legend. But yeah, let's talk about Danjuma. So a lot of people say he's, came on, he scored his goal. Simon says, hope we don't winks, hang on, successful wait. Yeah. You know what, Simon? I heard a rumor, and I hope this isn't true, that we might give Sessignon a new deal. I think this is crazy. But then it kind of like petered out. So maybe we're not going to give Cess a new deal now, like with Dyer. Like they spoke about Dyer giving Dyer a new deal, and then people like me were like losing their heads on Twitter about this. And then suddenly the Dyer new deal thing like calmed down. So yeah, so I hope we don't give him a new deal because there was rumors that we're going to give Cess a new deal. I really hope we don't give it to him. Danjuma. So my take on Danjuma was he's a versatile player. He can play all across the front three. I thought he played in the middle even for a bit last night. He played off the left mainly, but the thing about Danjuma, and I'm not slating him. Big up, Sam. I take it you want him to go as well. But with Danjuma, Sav, you're actually a really good fan of Danjuma, aren't you? So this is my take on Danjuma. I think as a squad player, he's okay. I think he'll do all right. And I think the pluses with Danjuma, and I spoke about this on Marlon's show last night, is that he's coming with Spurs with a point to prove. He's got to get back into the Netherlands national team. He's got to prove that he can actually still play well because obviously he's fallen out of favour of Villarreal because of the manager change. Obviously, there is an option to buy. I think it's like 20 million. Correct me if I'm wrong. So yeah, you love Danjuma. Like he has a point to prove, Danjuma. That's a good thing about getting someone like him, and I guess. But as for if we look at him as quality wise, is it really that much of a push for Tottenham to push on as a football club to sign someone like Danjuma? I'd probably say no. But if we're talking about someone who can come in and do a job as like a squad player, I'd say he could probably do that. And at least Conte used him yesterday for 20 minutes. At least he used him. So maybe he is a fan of him. I don't know. To me, when Danjuma signed, I thought it was like a club signing because it was a 6-month loan. I know there's an option to buy, but it wasn't an obligation. And to me, it showed that more the fact that Conte is more likely to go because it's a 6-month thing. Yeah, I mean, yeah, we've said that about a lot of players though. I don't know. Where do you think Danjuma should play though? Left, right, middle? Because I think you can leave him play up front. Correct if I'm wrong. But yeah, so it was a 20-minute cameo. You know, not much. But yeah, let's talk about Son because I mean, let's not. I know I spoke about Son earlier, but do you guys think? Let's go about Son. Son in the middle. In the middle. Do you guys think? Because obviously we've got Danjuma now. Do you guys think that Son might play in the middle? Kane might play further back, and Danjuma might play off the wide positions? Because obviously Richarlison's injured. But do you think going forward, Son should play in the middle rather than on the left? Marlon Harewood, fucking hell, Marlon Harewood. Marlon Harewood. Harewood, or what's his guy's name? Yeah. Marlon Harewood or Gregor Asiak, which one? But yeah, for me, like Sonny, I think going forward, I'd rather see him play in the middle than on the right or on the left. Yeah. I spoke about this earlier. Forster for me has to play against City. He has to play that match. Like Hugo's made so many mistakes this season that I just can't tolerate him another game. I really can't. Francis Jeffers, that's a throwback. Francis Jeffers, fucking hell. So yeah, so like, do you guys want us to beat City? By the way, on Sunday, do you want us to lose? Because obviously Arsenal are fighting for the title. City needs all the points they can get. So, do you want to win against City or lose against City? That's the question I'm going to ask you guys. Yeah. Honestly, mate, I think the same sort of thing with him. The only positive I can say is at least Conte's used him. Like if we signed, Strong as the left wing, but then would you move Richarlison, I guess, to the middle? As in, like I said, the positive with Danjuma for me is that at least he's coming with a point to prove, so he can, he's got a point to prove to not only Conte but just to everyone else. So he's gonna, put in good shift. Hell no, he's not agreeing with that one. Okay, let's talk about this Hugo Lloris because hold on. Do you want us to win? Do you want us to win versus? I know this is a stupid question, but do you want us to win against Man City? It's a good question to ask because, in my opinion, I wouldn't even mind losing this game because I think that we need City to get as many points as possible if Arsenal are not going to win the title because Arsenal are favourites. You think Arsenal will do it regardless? Time a couple points and chicken. That's probably what we're going to offer Hincape, to be fair. Yeah, so I don't know, man. Like, I don't see us beating City regardless if we go in there with like the mentality to actually win the game. But I do think after 2 wins we've just had now, I think a little bit more confident. I think we can go at home to City and actually get some sort of result, maybe a draw. I mean, we are sort of meant to be their bogey team, but I predicted we lose 4-2 against City, and we lost 4-2. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't want to make a prediction for next Sunday now because I was right about the last game. But yeah, I don't know. I'm a bit kind of mixed feelings about this because, like I said, I really don't want Arsenal to win the title. But then part of me does want them to win the title because it'll prove that they're below us and they still finished above us again and won the title. So it proves to the board that, this was an argument I heard yesterday. It will prove to the board that if Arsenal can do it, we can do it. Because don't forget, Arsenal didn't even make Champions League last season. But yeah, our fans were like, oh no, but blah, 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 blah. But yeah, let's talk about this because there's apparently a protest. If I can make this one protest. Da-da-da. I don't know if you guys have heard. There's rumored to be a protest at the City game before the match. I think it's meant to be outside the club shop. I don't know if any of you guys are planning to attend. I don't think I can make it. I think I've got something on that morning before the game. Also, another. I think this is transition with Haaland. That's a good take, actually. I think Haaland's kind of changed the way City play now. They used to be a little more tiki-taka. Now it's a bit more direct because De Bruyne just pings ball into Haaland and he just got on the end of it and he scores a goal. Yeah, I know what you're saying, but it's just, Daigle's on it, yeah. I don't know if I can make it or not because I think the timings are really bad for me that day. I'm going to the game, but the timing's like really bad for me. But yeah, protest. Are you going? Are you not going? Do you want to protest? Albeit in fact that some people might suddenly change their minds because we signed Porro. Yeah, Arsenal fans hate their owners. Yeah. Son should play in the middle. It gives them more options to score. Great. Doesn't rush him. That doesn't. Yeah. But if we're going to persist with Son in the middle, you kind of have to play a 3-5-2 because you can't leave out Kane, and Kane has to play in the middle. So does that mean like what in that scenario? What happens to Kulusevski? Do you? Cause like in my opinion, I'd actually like to see Kulusevski play on the right wing back role if this is going to happen, because at least you get him in the team. Because you play Son and Kane as the strikers, you have Kulusevski at right wing back as an option. Because if you persist with Son in the middle, what happens to Kulusevski? I think that's the question people need to ask as well. And then obviously you got Danjuma who's come in. Richarlison's still here. I guess those two are going to be backups to Son and Kane as well. But yeah, so if Son goes into the middle and this is like a position we're going to transition him to, what happens to Kulusevski? Or do we change formation to like a formation where we can't play four at the back, we never play four at the back, but where Kane plays like in a deeper role midfield and you have Son up front with Richarlison or something like that in an old school 3-5-2, and then like Kulusevski at right wing back, because I don't see a scenario. You know, the issue with this is I can see where you're coming from, mate, but if we sell Kane, we need an extra 3 players on top of the another 10 we need to rebuild the side, because Kane is arguably 2 or 3 players molded into one. So we'll not only lose all the goals, right, but we'll also lose the creativity that Kane brings us. And apart from Kane, only Kulusevski brings creativity to the side. So it's like, do you know what I mean? I don't want Kane to go regardless, but I think if we don't win anything this season, if we don't make the Champions League, which is looking quite likely right now, I think he's gone in the summer. He has, I think, a year left or something, or 18 months left so far. So by the time it comes to the summer, we'll have a year left. So yeah, I wouldn't sell him because he's too valuable, and I think you're kind of adding more players to rebuild if you sell someone like Kane. I just think if you sell someone like Son, you can replace Son with one player. But if you sell someone like Kane, we're talking 2 or 3 players to replace him on top of the actual rebuild itself. So I think it actually makes it more complicated. Armchair support. Don't worry, mate. Yeah, I think it's a good point to say. Yeah, that's a good point to say. Yeah, for me, I don't want to sell Kane because I just think he's too valuable for the club and too valuable for even just our team. Because if you sell Kane, you lose creativity and you lose goals. If you sell someone like Son, you lose goals, but I don't think you lose as much creativity because he doesn't really offer that. And I think it's easier to find finishers rather than complete players like Harry Kane. Harry Kane, for me, is 2 or 3 players molded into one because he's that important to us. Yeah, no, I see where you're coming from, but the club has enough money. If we wanted to spend 80 million on Hincapié tomorrow, we actually could do it. But unfortunately, we have Daniel Levy as our chairman, so we won't. Yeah, big up, Carl. You're right, mate. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's a good take actually, because Sheringham played deeper and he played further up, didn't he? So, but I think Kane's probably a better player. I didn't see much of Sheringham though, but I would say he's probably a better player. Yeah, I actually think Kane will transition into at least a number 10, if not a central midfielder eventually when he's like 35 or something. Like, you remember Rooney? When Rooney was playing as a striker for United, then he played further deep, and then eventually he plays as a midfielder. Yeah. Personally, I'm a fan of Richarlison, and I want Richarlison to stay. But I did hear something the other day. I don't want to say who said this to me, but from what he was told, Conte actually wanted Osimhen from Napoli, but Osimhen was going for, I think, 75 to 80 million pounds or euros. I can't remember the exact price. So Richarlison, I'm not saying he wasn't a Conte signing, but I think he was probably like the B, C, D level of signing. He wanted Osimhen from what I heard and I was told. But Richarlison, I really like Richarlison. But I think, again, Richarlison, you have to play him in the middle, or you play him off the left. You don't play him on the right, because on the right he just can't do anything. Hey, big up, Mr. Daigle. Brian, if you want to join, the stream links at the top. But yeah, so protest, yes or no? I think the protest is going to go ahead regardless. But the reason I bring this up is because after this window closes, will some fans suddenly be like, "Oh, I'm not going to protest on the 5th now because we signed Porro and Danjuma, and if we bring another centre half like Harry Maguire on loan, will some people suddenly be like, oh, Levy's done a great job now?" I'm saying, will some fans not want to protest because of that? Because, people change their minds all the time about this. There's too many people sort of like, they're not fully Levy out, that they are Levy out, but they're based on sort of like performances, but they're not like long-term Levy out, if that makes sense. So I've been Levy out for 10 years. Mr. Brian Daigle's has been Levy out for like, I don't know, maybe like 15, 20 years. I don't know. Don't quote me on this. Okay, all right. Big up, Brian. Not just the finisher. Big up the chat. He's great for brain ability. Yeah. Love you too, mate. Put Kane where Son was on the left. Kudo on the right, Son in the middle. Don't rate Richarlison. So you put Kane on the left? I don't think that works. Hey, big up, mate. Okay. Brian knows what he's talking about. So, guys, the process is still going ahead. But Brian, my point was more the fact that you have fans who are like on the fence, or not on the fence, but they change their minds like every window. They're suddenly, going to protest. Well, I'm Levy out, and then suddenly Levy signs like 2 line signings and 1 permanent, and suddenly like, oh no, Levy's done a great job now. We don't have to protest anymore. If that makes sense. But you're like me. Regardless if we sign Nkape on deadline day, I'm still going to be want to protest, because this has happened. Like, once he left it till deadline day, we've lost 12 points at least probably this month from it. So yeah, I mean, Levy hasn't changed his ways really. So I thought it was on deadline day, but that's what I thought. But I think it's the next one's in the City game. Correct me if I'm wrong. Mr. Brian Daigle will know that. Yeah, exactly, Brian. It's like people just tend to just want to change. As soon as there's like a signing, they just change their minds. It's like, well, why? Why is it like this? Yeah, big up, Hashim. You're right, mate. I think for me, this is the underlying issue with the Levy out thing. There's too many people who just seem to just change their minds on like a whim. Like, I hear some person say criticizing the board for like a period of time, say during a certain manager's era, like Pochettino, there were some people criticizing during that period, or Mourinho, or even appointing Mourinho, and then they're like, Levy will sign someone they like Ndombele, I remember, or I think Ndombele was one where people suddenly were like, "Oh no, I'm Levy in now," but it's like, well, we signed one player. I don't understand it. But yeah, exactly. It's fickle fans. It's just change their minds every so often. I don't get it. Yeah, I was thinking of going. It's also my birthday on deadline day, so yeah, yeah. Big up the chat. Yeah, so this one is the one I was just talking about before. Is this going to happen or not? I don't know. I could make this one easily. Yeah, so like the protests need to not stop, regardless of what Levy does in the next 2 days, 48 hours. You know, the Spurs 48 hours. You know, but yeah, like does last night's result really change much for people? Because obviously there's also this issue, Mister Antonio Conte. So yeah, do you guys think Antonio Conte will stay, or do you think he's still gone? Do you think he'll stay, or do you think he'll go? Because even after yesterday, I'm still convinced he's going to leave. I think unless we sign someone like huge, or not just one huge player by tomorrow, but two like massive players tomorrow, I still think he's going to leave. I I don't see him staying past the summer at all. To be honest with you guys, I yeah. If anyone doesn't know, um, so apparently Porro shagged Felix's wife or something. So yeah, that should be quite interesting when they play against each other. When do we next play Chelsea? Let me just check. Hold on, give me a second. When do we next play Chelsea? Spurs versus Chelsea. Have we played them twice already? Oh yeah, Chelsea versus Tottenham, 26th of February. Yeah, because the game got moved. 26th of February, we'll see Felix versus Porro. 26th of February. If you want to see some two players getting at each other because of a bird, just go watch that game on the 26th of February. So, but will Conte still be here in the summer? I think that's a question on everyone's lips. And I think for me, the club have not done a good job, obviously, to convince Conte to stay, regardless of what happens in the next couple of days. I think they've done a really rubbish job again on backing the manager. Regardless of what happens to him, does he stay? Does he go? But I think the biggest issue for me is the club are not intelligent enough to realize that you can still buy players for Conte and they can still suit another manager. So someone I normally have in the show called Justin, he's not free right now, but he always argues, and I'm with him on this, right? If we sign someone like a centre half, especially like a middle centre half on a permanent deal, like a top class one, we're talking like the Bastonis, the Bremers, like someone solid that will come in. I'd even take an experienced centre half. Like back in the day, we signed Naybet on a free transfer. Yeah, we give you 200 million a year, but buying Poundland players. Yeah, that's pretty much spot on. You know what? I probably still will leave it out. It kind of depends. If I see that happen over like 2 or 3 years, this sort of business happen over 2 or 3 years, because Conte's a very demanding manager. Even if we do all this that you said, I still think he want players in like a year's time, even if it's only like one or two. So if it carries on in that manner in 2, 3 years, maybe I'll change my mind. But I was 10 years. I was Levy in 10 years. I've been Levy out. It's going to take a lot for me to suddenly turn back. Like that's a good window, but personally, I don't see us signing Bastoni and Nkape. Yeah, the Beehive. Yeah, both good pubs, by the way. The Beehive's good, but personally, I want Martinez as our goalkeeper. But a lot of people disagree with me about that. But yeah, okay, guys in the chat, if Lee sees the error of his ways and backs Conte with 250 million this summer, okay, imagine that happens, and signs Bastoni, Nkape, Madison, Raya, and another 100 million this January, I guess, or the next January after. I don't know what you mean, Zaf. And would you still be Levy out? Question to the chat, because there's a lot of Levy out people. Okay, so this is a story. When I was growing up, I was Levy in because I saw what the club was trying to do. We were buying young English players. There seemed to be like a plan to build a squad or a side that could make the top four. Yes, he's still Levy out. Okay, so I'll tell you the story. So they're the side that were going for top four. And the whole aim at the beginning of Levy's tenure and Enix's tenure was to make the Champions League. And once we made the Champions League in 2010 under Harry Redknapp, we went for a window. Did I just say Levy in? Yeah, I was Levy in for 10 years. I was Levy in for 10 years. But this is a story. This is a story about how I turned Levy out. So, like I said, the first 10 years under their tenure, or 9 years under their tenure, we were so it was probably like 9 years. I was actually Levy in because I saw the club sort of saying, "Look, the aim is to make the Champions League, so we could buy better players and to push them as a football club." Now, when we made the Champions League, okay, let's get the lights to at least 10. Come on, guys. When we made the Champions League, we didn't buy better players, did we? We had the Van der Vaart transfer, which was complete luck if you look back on it. We signed, I think, William Gallas on a free, Sandro for like 10 million-ish. I think some like players like Pienaar, all this crap. Okay, so the first window, I kind of gave them like a bit of leeway because I was like, it's the first year in the Champions League. They don't really know how to conduct themselves because, it's the first experience, right? But we get to the next window, and we're still obviously under Harry Redknapp and still trying to push for the Champions League again. And if you guys remember, January 2012, Spurs were, I think, third in the table. They were linked with Tevez and Gary Cahill. Yeah, you might remember those names. Carlos Tevez, who at the time he was on strike at Man City. And obviously Gary Cahill was a player that Spurs and especially Harry Redknapp really liked at the time. He ended up going Chelsea. No surprise there. And we wanted Gary Cahill. Now, I remember Spurs made a bid, I think, before that, the summer before, of something like 20 million or something, or 15 to 20 million. I think they asked for 30 or something, correct me if I'm wrong, something like 30 million. And Levy wasn't prepared to pay the price to get Gary Cahill. Now, at the time, Gary Cahill was actually, I think, at Bolton or some team like that. I think it was Bolton. And he was actually a very highly sought after English player. Yeah. He know good old Saha Nelson. Yeah. I'm getting to that now. So like Harry Redknapp really, really, really wanted Gary Cahill. I remember he really wanted him, and Carlos Tevez more of like opportunistic sort of player because Tevez, like I said, went on strike at City. But if you look at January before that, Levy bid on deadline for Negredo, Aguero. Who was the other striker? Andy Carroll, Giuseppe Rossi, and they're all on deadline day. They're all lowball offers for players. But Redknapp really, really wanted a top-class striker and a top-class centre-half. Because obviously we had Ledley King, who would play every so often. And Cabal had become like an amazing player under Redknapp in the second spell at Tottenham. I had Dawson there as well. So we're quite sort of stocked for centre-halves. But he wants like a really top-class centre-half. Probably to pair with like Cabal in the long run because of Ledley King's injuries. That's how I felt. And also our strike force, we had Adebayor, Defoe, and Pavlyuchenko at the time. And he wanted to obviously sign a top-class striker, an elite striker, to kind of take us to another level. And that season, that January, when we were third, I think we're only like, correct if I'm wrong, like 5 points off top or 6 points off top. We were within touching distance of top spot. But what did we do? We spent all January. There was rumors like Gary Cahill, again. And yeah, we lowballed offers, maybe, I don't know. And we get to deadline day, and I'm on the train, and I'm looking at Twitter, because Twitter, I think, was quite early at the time. And obviously BBC Sports, Sky Sports, and they were saying, oh, Spurs are signing 2 players, but they're on free transfers. I mean, that's another one. Yeah, exactly, yeah. For me, it was this, though. For me, it was this. Good old Saha Nelson. So we get to deadline day, and I hear Pavlyuchenko's on the move, so I'm like, okay, maybe we're going to sign another striker. I hear Bassong's been loaned out. So I'm like, okay, all right. And then Redknapp comes on Sky Sports, right? And he goes, I have 2 experienced players coming in from experienced football teams and becoming on a free transfer. And I think Saha at the time, apart from his injury issues, I think he was on a permanent deal at Everton, but they kind of let him go on a free because of his injury issues. Like they didn't get any fee for him. I might be wrong about this, but I remember this quite vividly. Ryan Nelson, not the same sort of situation, but he was 34 years old, New Zealand international. I'm imagining, because obviously Redknapp was managing Portsmouth, he did sort of look at these sorts of players at the time. I'm not saying he didn't know them. I think everyone knew who Lewis Saha was because of his spell at United. And he was actually a massive player back in the day at Fulham. He was like their best player. But as you know, United back in the day would pick up every other team's best players, have them in their squad. They might not play every game, but yeah, so we get to deadline day. It gets to like 10 o'clock or 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, and guess who arrives? Lewis Saha and Ryan Nelson. And also, as a consequence of this, we still made the top 4, but like we just about scraped it. and yeah, we just about scraped top 4. And Redknapp was sacked at the end of the season, which I thought was even more crazy because he was kind of done on technicality with that. Because don't forget, Chelsea won the Champions League, unfortunately for all of us, and even though finished the top 4, which was also behind Arsenal, who managed to catch up with us as well. So yeah, standing still doesn't get you anywhere. And Saha and Nelson was the reason why I turned Levy out, because for me, that showed that the club, they promised us Champions League to push on as a football club, but no, we didn't do it. We just stood still. And that was the mentality that the club was putting out. And obviously, this is the first time I turned. Obviously, we improved further down the years with Pochettino, where we made the Champions League and signed players like Nkudu, Sissoko as a panic buy on deadline day, players like that. The only good player I remember that winner was like Wanyama or something like that, who actually really wanted. So it's years and years and years of neglect. We make the Champions League and we don't push on. And that was the first example of it. And for me, I was basically felt like I was sold a lie by Levy and the club, because obviously Levy puts out the statements every season, doesn't he? I was told a lie by them. And this is why I turned. For me, it's more principle. It's not the whole ESL. I was ready to leave you out by then. Obviously, that kind of pushed me even more annoyed about it, because for me, Spurs should not be in the Super League. We're not good enough to be in the Super League. This is just my takes. So guys, don't get offended about that. And yeah, so yeah, Saha and Nelson was the reason why I turned. But you see, repeating over the years and years and years, even under Conte just recently in the summer, we do not push on as a club when we make the Champions League, and that's more my gripe. I know a lot of people turned Levy out after the whole stadium issue, because again, he told us we'll move stadiums, we'll build a bigger stadium to spend more money and to push on as a club. But again, he lied to us. I mean, he lied to us in the statements about playing back the Spurs way. But it's Ryan Nelson, mate. He's a legend. Yeah. The thing about this, Sav, is just like, it's just the whole, you tell us, the club puts out statements, right? Each season, Levy puts out a statement, and he's the one who signs off on it, so he must have some input. But he puts out these statements, and he's not a man of his word. For me, it's more principle rather than like, you know, I just hate him. I think it's a massive ego, but yeah, it's just me. It's more principle. That's why I turned. It's more about principle. And like I said, the ESL for some people, okay, certain people I think have different breaking points with Levy. I think some people it was the stadium, because we got Pochettino and they had the new faith, I guess. Some people it was the ESL, because it was the whole ethical thing behind it. For me, I just look at the football, because it's a football club. And if the football isn't good, the football isn't effective, you're not backing managers, then as far as I'm concerned, you're not doing your job. So if Levy and you're watching this, you're not backing managers, you're not doing their job. But also people push this whole Man City thing and Chelsea thing. But I want to bring up another point, because I think this is very important. Because I was talking about this on Tottenham Way the other day. So not the amount. You'll be interested to hear about this, guys. Not the amount. The use of it. So the massive thing that everyone seems to level at us who are Levy out is the amount of money we spend. So people are saying we don't want to do Leeds, we don't want to do Man City, we don't want to do a Chelsea and spend like crazy amounts of money. Okay, so they have more resources than us. But you look at clubs like Liverpool, Arsenal, who obviously, Arsenal doing bits. Leicester, even to a lesser extent. I do think their title win overall was kind of sort of an anomaly. They were the best team in the league, but it probably would never happen again. But reason I bring this up is because, like I said, I was on Tottenham Way with Stel the other day, so you can catch that stream. It was done, I think, on Friday at around like 2ish. So we'll talk about Pochettino and how he needs an apology. But I argue that every manager that's come to Spurs needs an apology from Levy, because they all were fucked over. But for me, it's not exactly the amount of money we spent that's the issue. Of course, I argue the amount in terms of like, with 5 million or 10 million off an evaluation of a player. Yeah, exactly, Daryl. Exactly, you're spot on, mate. You're spot on, mate. But the whole did you guys hear that story about Mourinho when he was saying that he wanted Kim Min-jae, right? And it cost 10 million, I think, I can't remember, it was 10 million euros or something like that. And Spurs weren't willing to pay 5 million more to get him in. These are the things where I'm like, when people like me say Levy out, say it needs to spend more money, it's not the whole we spend like 100 million on one player. It's more the fact that these small 5 million, 10 million here and there is the main issue with it, right? So yeah, pick up the chat. 13 people watching, smash the like and subscribe. So it's not the amount of money exactly, it is to a lesser extent, but it's also the use of it. So you look at the bail money back in that day. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Guys, listen to Bob Swear. Big up Bob Swear, mate. So it's not exactly like the amount we spend. It is to a lesser extent, but it's more the use of it. So you look at Liverpool, for example, and compared to Tottenham. So we got, I think, 100 was it 85 million for Gareth Bale. We got signed 7 players with 85 million pounds. In those days, you could have spent 30 to 35 million on 3 players who could come in and replace Bale actually like leaving the club. Okay, we got Soldado and Lamela, who was just, I mean, that was just Lamela and Soldado were just rubbish options. But if you look at the rest of that money was spent, right? It was on players who just Session was man of the match. By the way, if you don't follow this guy on Twitter yet, you should. This guy is hilarious. I love this guy. He's brilliant. Yeah, exactly. Emil Heskey has more trophies than Harry Kane. Read it and weep it. Like this is actually a disgrace. Harry Kane deserves way more than we give him. But it's not like obviously it is the amount in most instances because we're not willing to pay like the extra 5 or 10 million. But it's not the amount in the sense that we need to pay another like 30 million on top or something crazy like that. Because we are not shopping the same market, of course, as City and Chelsea as much. We can to a lesser extent with like Arsenal and Liverpool, but like I said, the difference to me is that Liverpool went and spent 70 million on Van Dijk or an 80 million on Alisson. With that 150 million, if you look at Tottenham, we'd have spent it on like 5 or 6 players, maybe 4 to 5, 6 players, and for say younger, less experienced, less established, is quality. So we need quality over quantity. We always go for quantity, and also younger players on cheaper salaries because the club just wants to make money of them further down the line. I'm not against signing younger players. I actually think signing young players is good, but you need to do it in a manner where the way City have done it, they've built their team, they've built their squad, they built their foundation, not foundations anymore. It's like a proper squad, but now they can add younger players around the team because they built a solid base. They have We're elite scout. No, we're not para-teaching manager like Poch or Harry. See, our scouting is a massive issue because if you look at someone like Sessegnon, who the hell scouted Sessegnon? That's a good question because apparently Spurs watched him since he was 10 years old. Yeah, for me it's more like I said, but for me it's more like the use of the money rather than the amount. So, like I said, I was going back to the stream I had with Stel the other day on Tottenham away. We compared the amount Arsenal spent and Tottenham spent since Pochettino, I think, left or something, or since Arteta joined Arsenal. So they spent 594 million. We spent 534, 54, something along those lines. So there's like a 60 million difference, which is arguably like 1 or 2 players for us. Now, obviously, I think the major difference is, apart from like the cost, was obviously their continuity of Arteta for like 3 years now. We've went through like 3 managers or 4 managers since Arteta's joined Arsenal. So they have the stability that we had with Poch, and they built on it. With Poch, we didn't build on it. We've just changing managers every 2 years and expecting to do miracles with the same players we've had since Pochettino. This is not going to work, right? Okay, guys. Stalteri or Emerson and Sessegnon or Lee Young Pyo? I'm interested to hear what people say about this. Please, guys, think about it. What do you think about this? So, obviously, there is a difference in the sense that maybe Arsenal's extra money of that 60 million was spent on players that they met the valuation where Spurs didn't meet the valuation of the players they wanted originally, but we got the second or third choices or even further down the line. But because the amount spent is so similar, you need to look at the way it was used. So with Arsenal, they went and bought players that obviously Arteta wanted. and they spent slightly more. But isn't that the whole point, right? We're still shopping the same market. Oh my god. Mate, you're hilarious. So you know, it's not just the amount, it's also the use of it. We just don't use it the same way. I'd rather, for example, the Bell money, spend it on three £35 million players who are 26 years old, 27 years old. I think we linked with Hulk back then, so he cost, I think, 40 million. Hulk, the rumored price was 40 million. Plus, obviously, there's a Willian issue, which is not completely our fault, but it really messed us up. But so, been the 40 million on someone like Hulk, 30 million on like a centre half at the time, and then like another 30 million on a winger, obviously because Bale was a winger, right? But we had to replace Bale's goals and his creativity. So it's sort of like with Kane, right? But instead we bought 7 players who were cheaper, of course, and instead of 3 or 4 top quality players. And that's the difference between the way Spurs conduct business and other clubs conduct business. And this is a major issue, is the transfer policy. And unfortunately, as long as Levy's here, the transfer policy won't change. But I'm more like Levy out than Inic out, just in my opinion. When Hazard going Chelsea, Ross, yeah. I think the Hazard thing for me, we could have got him that. If we're willing to pay the money, I think we could have got him that January. As for Willian, I think it's just this is where it fell. No. I'm not talking about Daryl. I'm not talking about now. I'm talking about back when we sold Bale. But yeah, I mean, what do you guys think? Do you think Paratici is going to be able to do transfers anymore? Yeah, Simon says. Listen to Simon says. But guys, like, like I said, that for me, it's more the use of the money rather than the amount as such. I think that's more the issue. But like I said, I think that's more to do with, for example, like our transfer policy. Our transfer policy is the biggest issue at the club. For me, we've changed stadiums, we moved stadiums, and the transfer policy is still the same. It's still buy young players with cheaper salaries to sell them on in the future. And then you expect an elite manager. I'm not saying Conte is like not elite or anything, but you expect any manager to come in and nurture these young players into players that can just about scrape top 4. This is basically the mentality of the club. And unfortunately, I look at someone like Nkape, and obviously, I don't know if Conte wants him, but that screams again a player that the club will go for more than Conte. I might be wrong. Maybe Conte wants him, but it's like the same policy each time. The only player that's gone against this policy in recent times was Perisic, but I think the club wouldn't have signed Perisic if he cost like 30 million. It's because he was on a free transfer. And furthermore, if you look at the way we conduct business, right, with the whole Trossard offer, Trossard, we gave 12 million for him, right? We probably valued him like 15 something. They wanted 20, 27, 28. But it's like we lowballing these players, but maybe the club has another policy that we're not aware of where they won't pay over like 20 million for like a 28-year-old, which wouldn't surprise me because I think it's just the policy is to buy say 20 up to 21 to 24-year-olds, I say, just as like an estimate, right? For low salaries, so like say on 60 to 90k a week. And yeah, and like I said, guys, the major issues of transfer policy. So going into my final closing statements about this. So it's good we won Preston. And yeah, who do you guys want in the draw? FA Cup draw is tomorrow. Who do you guys want in the FA Cup draw? Who do you guys want? Because I really do not want Man City. I don't want United. I don't want any of Liverpool. I don't want Liverpool. I don't want any of the big sides. Spurs hope for me with the FA Cup is we need to get as many teams, winnable games and winnable teams as possible until we get to like at least the semi-finals, because otherwise I just don't see us getting in there. So yeah, I want someone like Bristol City at home or someone like that. Yeah, someone like that. Bristol City at home I'll take. And the draw is 7:00 tomorrow. And before I leave, sorry, it's just me. So, guys, thanks for tuning in. I should be back sometime next week, maybe Thursday, because obviously the City game falls on a Sunday, so I might even do a Saturday show as well. But we're talking like Wednesday, Thursday or Saturday. Foster's still in it. Cop Fosters. What do you mean? Huh? I'm confused. What do you mean by Cop Fosters? Oh, Cop Fosters in the FA Cup draw. No, I don't think so. I don't think so. Maybe Barnet FC is still in it. I don't know. But I actually go, guys. Okay, I love Ryan Reynolds. I actually want Wrexham to beat Sheffield United today. And you know what I want to see on Wrexham at home? I actually want Wrexham at home in the FA Cup draw because I want to see Ryan Reynolds shake Levy's hand. I think it'll be fucking hilarious. So before I go and before everyone goes, as Mr. Brian Daigle would say, Levy out and come on, you Spurs.